In today's video, we provide you a complete beginner's guide to comprehensive firearms training, all in one video. If you would like to watch these videos individually, click on the playlist here. These are skills that are going to be absolutely indispensable for a novice prepper. Let's get to it. Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here, back again in beautiful British Columbia with my main man, Rod Giltaca of the Canadian Coalition for Firearms Rights. He's the Executive Director. If you guys haven't seen our previous videos with him, I encourage you to go and check them out. We go into great depth about the state of the fight for firearms rights here in Canada. And what are we going to be doing here today, Rod?
We're going to be filming a series of videos that take someone who's brand new to shooting from zero to the point where they could safely be on the line in an advanced shooting course later or competition with higher level instructors, let's say Navy SEALs or JTF2 or whatever, to get from there to the point where you could take those courses or even be allowed it's a long ways, and it takes a lot of skills. We're going to work on some of these. We're going to learn them. We're going to learn a lot of drills and a lot of ways to train yourself on your own time to get you from zero to that point.
So what you're saying is I'm not going to become a Navy SEAL today?
No.
Okay. Maybe I'll get like part of the way there?
Well, maybe we'll get you dressed up like one.
All right. Hey, I'm used to LARPing around, so that's right up my alley. All right, guys, so it's our responsibility as firearms owners here in Canada to support the #1 gun lobby. That's the CCFR. They are our best chance of preserving what remains of our firearms rights and hopefully moving the goalpost backwards a little bit as well. So go and check it out. I'll post a link in the description below.
All right, guys, welcome to the first video in the series, and it's an important one. So this is the series intro. We're going to talk about what our goals are in this series of videos, this course. We're going to talk about how to prepare. And I think the most important thing right now is watch this video in its entirety. Don't get distracted because there's a lot of important information. Now, the first bit of information isn't important, but just in case you want to know about what my background is, my name is Rod Giltaca. I'm the former owner of Civil Advantage Firearms Training. I say former because I don't do that kind of training anymore. I operated this training company for about 10 years. We did a variety of different training during that time for civilians primarily, and that included live fire training, that included simunition force-on-force training in commercial structures, in houses, and some of the training we did was active shooter training, warrant service, high-risk room entry, hostage rescue, vehicle stops. There's some videos on YouTube about that. I'm also an instructor for the RCMP Canadian Firearms Program. I did that for about 10 years too. I think I've shot around 150,000 rounds of ammunition in my 10, 11-year career, which is a lot of ammunition. Most of it fired in training, and a few fired just for fun. And I'm not former law enforcement or military. I'm just a civilian who had an opportunity to participate in training that wasn't normally offered to civilians, and that's what drew me into firearms training. So I still look at things like a civilian, and I think that's one of the advantages that I had as an instructor was to make things understandable for the regular person off the streets. So the purpose of these videos is to get someone from zero, just maybe a new firearms owner with a semi-automatic rifle and some magazines and a little bit of gear, to the point where you could stand on the line in a more advanced course, let's say from a US Navy SEAL or a JTF2 operator or some law enforcement instructor. The skills required to get from zero to that point, there's a lot there. So this series of videos will prepare you and give you the skills that you need just to get there. So no, you're not going to be, a JTF2 operator when you finish this series, but you'll be able to take a course from one. That's what we're trying to do here.
Yeah, so the purpose of this is not to, we're just going to be providing the core principles for people, and then you'll be able to rewatch these videos and do these drills yourself and then gain mastery over time, and then that should set you up to go and take the more advanced level stuff.
Absolutely, and the things that we're doing here here's where they're going to help you. You'll be able to safely operate your firearm on the line with other people. You will become a better competitive shooter. You'll become a more responsible firearm owner. Your safety will be impeccable if you can get all the way through the series of videos that we're talking about and do things confidently. So there's a lot in it for you. There's a lot in it for responsible firearm ownership. So that's what we're trying to do here. We're going to do a little bit of talking, not so much shooting in this video, but these are fundamental concepts in the training that we're going to try to provide you with. Okay,
We'll make sure we put some gratuitous explosions in there.
That's
Keep your guys' attention.
That's right. Maybe some pro tips here and there just to kind of catch your attention. First thing is you can use the drills that we learn and the skills that we learn to do your own training here. You can also use this training, even if you're an experienced shooter, as run-up training if you're going to take a course, or you're, say, in the military and you're going to be deployed, or you're in law enforcement and you want to stay current, right? There's something in this for everybody. Now, you'll get a lot of training if you can partner up with someone. As you'll see when we go through these videos, there's a lot of drills that require external stimulus. It's hard for you to guess when you're going to create a fire command. It's a lot better when someone else can do it. So if you can team up with somebody to train together, that's really important and that'll go a long way. Next, the majority of what you're going to learn is applicable to handguns and shotguns, but shotguns are a little bit more complicated, the way that they're loaded and the range and all the rest of that stuff, but you can do all that stuff. As far as training with firearms and ammunition, it's expensive, right? All of us normal people got to pay for the ammunition. So there are a lot of these drills that you could do with airsoft or with pellet guns. That's a way that you can save a little bit of money and make it a little bit more practical for you. And you won't need an approved shooting range to do these things either. Next, very important, when it comes to taking courses, if you've taken a lot of courses and you're in the comment section, different people do things different ways. I've taken courses from JTF2, I've taken courses from elite law enforcement, I've taken courses from Navy SEALs, and lots of other special operations type people. And you know what? They all do things a little bit differently. So when it comes to being in the comments and sharing your experience, just like what we're doing today, we're just offering you a few things that I picked up along the way. This is not the way to do things in every instance. But when it comes to taking courses past this, if you go and you learn something here or you've learned something in other courses and you go to another course where you have an elite trainer, it's not up to you to tell the elite trainer what they should be doing. Just listen to the instruction that you have and then you decide whether you think that that's the right thing to do in different situations. It's the right thing to shoulder your rifle or it's the right way to shoot from a different position. Just listen to what everyone has to say and then figure out what works for you. And lastly, the drills that you're going to learn through this series of videos, you don't have to do them exactly the way that we're doing them. Understand the concepts, what we're trying to do, and then you can make up your own drills or incorporate some of the things that we've shown you here and incorporate a few things of your own. So really important. There's no rigid structure here, but you got to figure out what we're doing and why we're doing it.
It's a lot like a martial art, you know. I mean, you're training for random situations, but you're doing these drills that are maybe slightly repetitive, and it's like Daniel's son, you know, wax on, wax off. Why the hell am I doing this, right? Well, it's hopefully going to have some cross-training benefits in terms of a real-world application.
Well, and if Mr. Miyagi would have explained to Danielson why he was doing those things, that would have stopped a lot of the questions.
Exactly.
Right? And he would have focused on his training because he knew why he was doing it. Now, the next couple of videos are going to be very just explanations. They're not going to be a lot of shooting, but they're extremely important because when someone asks you to do something, a drill, you have to know why you're doing it. Because what I find, certainly in my experience, is if you don't know why you're doing it, the question starts running like, why are we even doing this?
Yeah.
And so that's what the next couple of videos are going to explain. Anyway, we'll see you in the next one.
All right, guys, we're back again with Rod Giltack of the CCFR. This is video number 2. Go check out the first one if you haven't seen it yet. Today, we're going to learn how we develop the motor skills that we're going to need to do this kind of stuff. What are we going to be learning today?
We're going to be talking about a training concept that I call intellectual bandwidth. And it's a critically important thing to understand. And it's also the reason why we do certain things during drills. So we talked, I think, a little bit in the last video about how important it is. We know the reason for the drills that we're doing. We know the reason for some of the actions that we're doing while we're doing these drills.
It's one of those things, anytime you're learning a new skill, myself personally, I think I was a little naive when I first started getting into firearms that I would just immediately able to jump in there and be John Wick. Well, not exactly, but I think especially when under a lot of stress, there's so many things to know. So I think what you're going to be talking about, if I'm not mistaken, is, you know, having to layer that understanding of things, layer those motor skills, develop those motor skills, and broaden that bandwidth. But you have a better way of explaining it, so maybe you can tell us a bit more about this intellectual bandwidth concept.
All right, so most people can only run so many concurrent tasks at the same time. And it's just like bandwidth, just like your internet, right? You have so much bandwidth, you can only run so much data across that wire. Now, when you're operating a firearm, different tasks, they're going to take different priority in your mind. So safety is the most important thing, because if you're out shooting, you have an object that propels a projectile, and that projectile is going to go through whatever's in its way, right? So what happens is when people first start shooting, 70%, let's say, in the total bandwidth that they're capable of as an individual is taken up with safety. And where you're going to see this concept in action is typically with beginners. When you have a beginner who learns how to point their firearm, keep their finger off the trigger, fire when the fire command or threat command is made, and safely put their firearm back on safety and bring it down, that takes up a big chunk of their bandwidth. As you develop these skills and they become innate, they become instinctive, those tasks require less and less of that bandwidth. And then now you can start thinking about other things like, well, should I be standing here? Should I be over there? Maybe I should take a knee right now. Oh, maybe I have a malfunction. And you'll be able to run all these tasks in concurrence. But unless you work all these individual skills, you'll never get to that point. You'll just continue to be clumsy. And that's the difference between someone who has all of their body movement skills innate, right? They occupy a very tiny part of their bandwidth, and that leaves a whole lot more for everything else. So that's the idea.
So the more and more you train the basics, the more hardwired it gets and the more reflexive it gets, and that frees up more higher level thought process for the more intricate things that you might have to, the randomized elements of the situation.
Yeah, for most people, they have so much bandwidth available. That doesn't really change. It's how much bandwidth is occupied by a certain task. That's why we're going to train. And as you're going to see together, we're going to start with simple drills. Then we're going to add more stuff in. We're going to add target identification. We're going to add movement. We're going to add scanning and breathing after each shot. We're going to be running the safety each time. We're going to just keep adding and adding and adding to the point where you have enough tasks to deal with. But when we do that slowly, those skills are going to become innate and they're not going to occupy that bandwidth. And so by the end, hopefully, you're moving, shooting, you have safety in the forefront of your mind, you're shooting the right targets, the correct amount of times, you're scanning, you're breathing, you're doing all the things that you need to do to get to the point where you're confident enough to stand on a line with a variety of other people in a course and take your training to the next level.
Could you elaborate on this concept of intellectual bandwidth and how it pertains to real world situations?
In real life, the way that the intellectual bandwidth principle manifests itself is if you're dealing with beginners. And so now you've taught someone how to safely discharge a rifle, you've taught someone how to change a magazine, you've taught someone how to check for a malfunction or what have you, and you make them walk forward slowly. And their job is just to fire at a target as per a command and to keep the same cadence in their step. So what we see with beginners is we'll see a change in the cadence of their steps when a magazine goes empty, let's say, when their gun goes empty, or they'll stop walking entirely and they need to be prompted to keep walking. And so what that means to us is, as you're a beginner, before you've received all this training, the amount of data that's concerned with just literally walking forward and firing a gun and reloading it if necessary, just those things alone is enough for people. They can't actually run all those concurrent tasks together. So that's how you see that in real life.
And it's almost like when you get overloaded with information, it's not like you perform certain parts of it well. Everything kind of just collapses. Everything just crashes. It's like a system that, like a computer that just, you don't have enough RAM. It just won't work. And that's what I found when I was doing that, is it wasn't just a diminishing, performance in any one of those particular things. It was just, system crash, So all the more importance of running those basic drills so that it becomes rote and and you free up more of that bandwidth. And I was actually surprised with myself how quickly, not to toot my own horn here, but I did notice myself developing throughout the day. So it wasn't like this is going to take years to master these things. Like, I think a lot of them, these layers could be developed, you know, with if you're persistently training, it probably wouldn't take too long. Obviously, there's, you know, the whole suite of things put together would take years, but some of the basics, like just, you know, the breathing part, the scanning, the reloading, the how you're positioning the firearm, getting in the habit of toggling the safety and keeping your finger out of the trigger guard, muzzle direction, like these things I think are pretty achievable in a shorter period of time. But the things I would really struggle with would be, you know, putting the whole thing together.
Well, as you said, you improved dramatically throughout the day. I mean, we still had a few hiccups here and there, but I mean, it was only a day. It wasn't even 8 hours. But I think if you were very committed to it and you said, okay, you know what, I really need to get from A to B, you know, how fast could I do it? If you did maybe 4 hours a day, maybe twice a week, in a month, and you were training with someone that was giving you that external stimulus, like that's one of the most important parts, is if you have someone that's training with you, shouting those commands so that you're not just saying, well, I'm gonna do this next, because that's not how it works in the real world. It's some external stimulus. I think if you trained twice a week, 4 hours per, you know, in a month, you'd actually have a lot of those skills become innate, and they wouldn't occupy such a great part of that intellectual bandwidth that you have available.
So what you're referring to essentially is muscle memory, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
So the skills that become innate to, you know, they're just little side threads that are running while you're doing everything else, leaving that big gap for all the things that you have to be creative about.
Going back to our reference in the first video, Daniel's son, when he's being told to wax on, wax off, he didn't really understand why he was doing that at the start, but what he was doing was getting those main patterns hardwired so he didn't have to think later on, and that could free up more bandwidth for other things.
Exactly.
So there was a method to Mr. Miyagi's madness.
He was mad and methodical.
There you go. You got to be a little bit of both. All right, guys, let me know in the comment section below, when you were first starting to shoot, or maybe you haven't shot yet, maybe you're just learning a new skill, was there a sticking point for you, or can you relate to this intellectual bandwidth concept? And make sure you come back for part 3 of this series. What are we going to be talking about in part 3?
We're going to talk about performance stress management and stress responses. And it's very important for you to understand that concept because, again, that's what's behind all the different aspects of the drills that we're doing. So again, you got to know why you're doing something.
Absolutely, and it's even if you do have all of these skills, even if you have the motor patterns hardwired, you're going to be put in a situation where you're very stressed, and so the ability to effectively execute in those types of conditions is pretty much the most important thing. You know, you could have the person with the most amount of skills, but if they can't manage stress in a bad situation, then, you know, it's all for naught. But the more you can have those skills hardwired, the easier it's going to be to function, I presume.
Well, and we're going to induce as much stress as we possibly can here at the range.
Yeah. All right, so make sure you come back for part 3. Thanks for watching. Canadian Prepper out. Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here, back once again with Rod Giltaca from the Canadian Coalition for Firearms Rights. This is part 3 in our video series on comprehensive firearms training. So today we're going to be learning about stress, because it doesn't matter if you're a world-class marksman. If you buckle under pressure, you're not going to be able to hit on target. So what are we going to be talking about today, Rod?
We're going to be talking about stress management and stress response. So a lot of things happen when you're under pressure, whether you're standing on the line with a bunch of other shooters and a very high-end instructor instructing you, or you're just trying to achieve something you haven't achieved before. You're going to end up being under stress. So the way that you manage that stress is really important. So we're going to look at what causes stress, the response that your body has to stress, and ways that we can overcome it. Now, the first thing that we have to understand about stress is there are 2 regions of everyone's brain that we all have in common. We have an area called the forebrain, and we have an area called the midbrain, or the mammalian brain. So the forebrain is what handles most of our higher level thinking, our logic, a lot of our personality. And the midbrain is a different region of the brain that activates under extreme stress, so survival stress or even performance anxiety. Now that midbrain is the part that you have in common with your dog, and that controls your fight or flight responses. It controls a lot of things that can cause you some issues. Now those regions of the brain correspond to, they're almost like 2 nervous systems in our body that are laid on top of each other. There's the parasympathetic nervous system and there's the sympathetic nervous system. The parasympathetic nervous system is the part of your nervous system that deals with digestion, peristalsis, right? That's the rhythmic muscles that help you when you eat, get food down your throat, bowel and bladder control, things like that. Basically, it's the maintenance crew. It's the things that happen to you every day, just your normal day-to-day. Now, the sympathetic nervous system is very different. The previous one is connected to your forebrain, right? Your rational side. The sympathetic nervous system is your fight or flight response. What happens is when you experience it, and we're going to just talk about extremes here so we can understand the concept. So if something happens to you, you know, your car stalls on the train tracks and there's a train coming and the gates are coming down, you're going to have a situation where your sympathetic nervous system is going to start overriding everything else. That means your forebrain shuts down, your midbrain takes over. And what happens there has a lot to do with your ability to stay calm in critical situations, and it also has a lot to do with previous training. So when it comes to firearms, in that context, we want to induce as much stress so you become inoculated to these stressful situations as we can, obviously while being safe on the range, so that should you ever have to perform at a competition or any other scenario and there's stress there, that you'll be able to overcome the physiological and the psychological effects of it. Now, here's what's important. When you experience a stressful situation, and again, we're going to just talk about extremes, so extreme survival stress, a lot of things are going to happen. And we're going to discuss this scale that was created by Siddle and Grossman, Grossman being Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman, who I've learned a lot of this stuff from, and he's an authority on stress response. So if we look at this chart, down here at the bottom, we have a condition called condition white. And this is when our heart rate is at its resting point. It's also known as homeostasis. So this is us just, you know, walking back and forth to the computer and getting a cup of water. When a critical situation happens, you can end up in these other four conditions, and they're conditions yellow through condition black. Where you end up when you have a stress response has everything to do with your prior amount of training, both psychological training and physical training, and your personality. When we use training and we ramp up the training with a lot of different things, loading up that intellectual bandwidth, if you remember from the previous video, this is what will prepare you to respond the way that you really want to in a stressful situation. All right, so we're cruising around in homeostasis, otherwise known as condition white. Then something really bad happens, right? Your car stalls on the train tracks, or rabid dogs running at you, or what have you. What'll happen is most people will run all the way to the far end of that scale, so condition red or condition black. And the kinds of things that happen to you will reduce your effectiveness in any situation. You'll lose all your fine motor skills. You won't be able to dial 911 under extreme survival stress because your fingers won't work. All your big muscles will still work, right? Your charging, thrashing muscles, stuff like that, running away from a threat, that'll still all work. In fact, they'll be optimized in condition red or black, but those fine motor skills will be gone. You'll also hyper-focus. You'll have tunnel vision. So if it's a vicious dog, you'll be hyper-focused on the dog. There could be other dogs around, you won't see them. You'll end up with tunnel vision. You'll lose your peripheral vision. In addition to that, you may void your bladder or bowels. That happens, like in combat. Some people think 30% of soldiers that are engaged in extreme combat will lose their bladder or bowels during that event. So I think all that to say, heading right to condition black is bad with prior training. When a critical situation occurs, you can end up somewhere around condition gray or condition red. And ideally, that's where you want to be. You want to have your heart pumping at a reasonable rate. You want to have blood moving to all your muscles. You're going to have increased cognitive reaction time. There's going to be a lot of good things that are going to happen to you. You're ready to perform whatever it is you're doing without losing total control of your forebrain and having the midbrain and your sympathetic nervous system completely take over. How we're doing that on the range is we can only simulate so much stress here, but we're going to simulate stress by creating goals. So 0 misses, let's say, and start throwing a lot of things like threat identification, moving and shooting, different commands, me trying to trick Nate. So to inoculate ourselves against all of this stress that we're trying to induce artificially at the range, we're going to be going through some of the techniques in this video and throughout the entire series that are all going to answer to that. So now the stress response itself comes on fast. Do you know how fast?
Probably within a few fractions of a second.
Probably between 1 and 2 seconds, basically 2 heartbeats. When you get an adrenaline dump, And you're also going to have cortisol. There's a lot of hormones that are going to activate when you are in some kind of extreme survival stress situation. It takes no time at all from your heart to go from resting, so for me it's about 65, to 200. It happens like that. Again, try to simulate all this stuff to make sure that when stress shows up, that we don't go all the way to the end of the scale. We're going to hang around somewhere around 120 beats per minute. And that's going to be where you're going to have peak performance without all the negative impacts of stress. Now, something else I want to cover really quick is there's a relationship between something that happens to people after the event, and that's called PTSD, right? Post-traumatic stress disorder, or post-traumatic stress. There's a lot of science around this. We're not going to get too into it, but there are really 3 factors that affect PTSD or PTS, and those are fear, helplessness, and horror. So that could be, you have a natural disaster happening. What will happen to a lot of people is their heart rate's going to go up. They're going to get that sick feeling in their stomach, right? That's the adrenaline dump. And then they're going to start to feel lightheaded. That's vasoconstriction. So there's a lot of different things that happen. The way that you combat these things are using a couple of techniques. So one of the techniques when it's happening is you are breathing. So when we're on the range and Nate's trying to shoot, he's going to be breathing as much as he can. He'll do it unconsciously when he's actually shooting, but when he's finished an actual exercise or a shoot command, he's going to take a great big deep breath. He's going to take his eyes off the target. He's going to look around. We call that scanning. And what that does is it breaks that tunnel vision. And it's really important. That's why we'll be like, finish what you're doing, take a deep breath, and take a look around. Flip your firearm on safe. It's not a habit we're trying to do to keep him oxygenated. It's a habit that we're doing that it breaks that stress. It puts more oxygen into his bloodstream, which tells his heart you don't have to beat as hard, which lowers his heart rate, and you're breaking that tunnel vision.
In terms of the difference between the forebrain and the midbrain, that PTSD becomes baked into the midbrain experience. This event, this incident, which gets baked into your brain, and then every time you're in a similar situation, you kind of go back to that space where you were. And so it takes a lot of grounding techniques. You talked about breathing, which is a good one. Lower that heart rate a little bit.
Now, when it comes to after you've done whatever you had to do, so after the earthquake or whatever, when you're starting to suffer that PTSD, those 3 factors, fear, helplessness, and horror. Well, how can we tackle those things before they happen? And that's one of the most important parts of all this. The fear and the helplessness can be overcome by training. It can also be overcome by you taking the time to visualize critical situations and the multitude of ways that you could have reacted to that. And the helplessness is important. If you have prior training, you already know what to do, you won't feel as helpless. So if you can take all 3 of those things down by working in your mind and also working training-wise, you'll reduce the effect that they have when something bad happens, and you'll have a good shot at reducing the trauma that you'll be experiencing after. So this is why this stuff is really important to training, and you'll see that it's incorporated in all the drills that we're going to do.
And I think there's an importance too in randomizing these drills that we're going to do and making it as unexpected as possible so it doesn't become too monotonous, because you do want to try to have this be generalized. It says you don't know what the situation is going to be, but I think just the idea of getting comfortable with stress, right, and being able to manage it can transfer to all kinds of situations, right?
I'm not a huge fan of buzz terms, but I'll screw up the term or the saying, but the first time that you need to do something shouldn't be the first time that you're doing it. You'll always respond better if you've done it several times or hundreds of times. So that's what we're trying to accomplish here.
Perfect. All right, guys, so now that we've talked about some of the core principles related to this stuff, we're going to go and put it into practice on the range in the next few videos. So make sure you come back and check those out. Don't forget, this video was sponsored by the Canadian Coalition for Firearms Rights. Links are in the description. Thanks for watching. Canadian Prepper out. Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here, back once again with my friend Rod Giltaka from the Canadian Coalition for Firearms Rights in video 4 of our series on comprehensive firearms skills. We're going to be going over some basic skills but advanced details. It's very important that you pay attention to the details of this video. So what are we going to be learning today, Rod?
We're going to be learning a lot of things, and we're going to be doing a little shooting, so that's good, right?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
So first thing we want to talk about is a couple of preparatory items for the shooting that we're going to be doing. Number one, binocular shooting. You always want to keep both your eyes open. So the kind of shooting that we're doing, we want to make sure that our awareness is everywhere as much as we can. You know, humans' eyes are really fascinating things. We have more than 180 degrees worth of peripheral vision when we have both eyes open. And that comes down quite a bit when you have one eye closed. So resist the urge to close an eye unless you have to take a really long shot and you have all the time in the world. For most of this stuff, we want to keep both eyes open. And you want to train yourself that way so that when you bring your firearm up, bring your rifle up, you know where that dot's supposed to be, even though you see two of them. So that's something you want to train on all the time. Next, make sure that your rifle is sighted in. And I'm a prolific offender of not having a rifle sighted in, but if you have one or two rifles or one or two handguns or whatever that you're likely to use in competition or what have you, always have those sighted in. I have many firearms, most of them aren't sighted in very well, but make sure the firearms that you're likely to use at any of these events is sighted in perfectly. You have a wide variety of choices, whether you want to sight them in at 50 or 100 meters or at 300, it's up to you. When it comes to sighting them, we're not going to talk about it. That's a big topic. There are tons of videos out there that you can go learn, probably tens of thousands that you can learn about how to sight in your rifle. We're not going to cover it here. Next thing, your personal protective equipment, right? You're going to need eye protection and hearing protection. When it comes to hearing protection, a little pro tip for you, I wear earplugs typically and then electronic ear protection over top. And I crank the electronic ear pro way up so that I can hear people talking when there's no shooting going on, but my hearing is really well protected, especially if you're shooting high pressure cartridges like 223, otherwise known as 5.56 NATO. A lot of pressure there, around 65,000 PSI. It's going to damage your hearing if you're not really well protected. Another thing, make sure that you're wearing gloves. Guns get hot, number one. And number two, if you're ever in an area where you don't have access to medical services, how long do you think does it take when you get a cut on your hand for an infection to take hold? Like 24 hours. So protect your hands. You don't want them getting cut up. You need your hands. They're one of the most important parts on your body when it comes to operating firearms. Training while you're wearing gloves is harder than using your bare hands, but it's probably good that you get used to it ahead of time.
Especially too, like just even loading cartridges or, you know, getting your thumb jammed in the gun doesn't feel good, and that little bit of protection can go a long way to mitigate that.
Yeah, so do what works for you, just a suggestion. So now that you have a gun on you, it's unloaded, we're gonna go over the range safety rules, which is really important. So the most important ones are, keep your finger off the trigger and out of the trigger guard unless you've made the conscious decision to discharge a round. If you're not actively shooting, then keep your finger off the trigger. If you're gonna take multiple shots, it's okay to have your finger on the trigger, but when you're done, finger off the trigger and you're gonna run your safety. So make sure that your safety is on at all times. If you get a shoot command or a threat command, you're gonna flick your safety off, take your 1, 2, 3, 5 shots, whatever. You're gonna scan, breathe, flick the safety back on before you put your rifle down to that resting position that you have it. You want to control your muzzle direction at all times. That is the cardinal rule of guns. No matter what you're doing, all this manipulation, these different shooting positions we're going to talk about, you have to be conscious of where your muzzle is pointing at all times. And the reason why that's the cardinal rule is when all of these other overlapping layers of safety fail and a round comes out of that gun, the last thing you have is it wasn't pointing at anybody. You also have to be conscious of where your bullet's going to go after it passes through the target. So if we're engaging 4 targets like we have laid out here in a minute, you have to be conscious of where's my bullet going to end up after it passes through the target. Those are your firearm safety rules. So the first thing we're going to talk about is shouldering your rifle. Now you're using an X95. So that's a bullpup configuration, not like a traditional rifle. So the way that you shoulder it is going to be up to you, whatever works for you. Some people have really wide shoulders. Some people have a very long neck. For me, typically I'll put the buttstock actually riding above my shoulder. I'll stick it in this little, just the bottom of it in this little pocket and come out like that. And I bring the rifle up to my face. I don't bring my face down to the rifle. If you're uncomfortable, you won't be able to stay like that. Sometimes you have to stay like that for a long time. So maybe try bringing the rifle up a little bit more so you don't have to bring your face down. See what I'm saying? Yeah, so that might be a little bit more comfortable. Again, it's personal preference, what works for you. Under an extreme stress response, typically your body will want to go square to the whatever it is that's threatening you, right? Dog comes, usually you're not going to be in a fighting stance. You're going to be like this, your hands are going to automatically go up, and you'll be square to the threat. So some people believe, in the tactical community, you could say, if you're going to do something naturally, you might as well do that in practice, because that's how you're going to end up anyway. So for me, I stand square. I bring the rifle right up to my face like this. So there's only actually just a little bit of the buttstock resting in this pocket, and I tend to stay like this. That makes sure that if I'm wearing armor, it's all at the front where it's supposed to be, and I'm in a position that I might naturally, under stress, end up in anyway. When it comes to placing a round, if you end up with a threat command, and we'll go over this again just before we start shooting, is you may be down in kind of a low port or low ready position. You'll get a command to shoot, you'll come up, sight in your target, flick your safety off, place your round, take your finger off the trigger. You're gonna take a deep breath, and you're gonna look around. And when you look around, after you scan, you're gonna put your safety back on and then relax and go to whatever position that you're waiting for. And we'll go over that more. But when you look around, here's what's important with that. You gotta really look around. You'll see a lot of guys that do this stuff for a living, meaning military or police, doing drills. They'll come up, safety off, fire a round, decide they're done shooting, flick their safety on. They'll take a big, deep breath and they'll go like this. And they're doing that because they don't want to do push-ups, because they didn't scan, but they're not really looking. They're doing it to satisfy somebody else. When you're doing it because you're seriously looking around. You look all the way behind you, right? It should look like this. Like, look around, break that. You're really looking for threats. And then later, I'm gonna stand behind you and I'm gonna be like this. I'm gonna have fingers showing. And when you look behind, I'm gonna say, how many fingers was I holding up? You have to notice things. You even have to force yourself to go, oh wow, look at all these tables. You know, oh, it's getting clear out. You know, the gate's open. You should be noticing things, because that's what's gonna break that tunnel vision. So the next thing, trigger control. You're gonna pull the trigger straight back, slowly and smoothly at the same rate of speed. So when you have a command, you're not gonna be yanking the trigger and moving the gun all over the place. You're gonna slowly and at the same rate of speed, depress the trigger straight back. Slowly and smoothly, directly to the rear, not yanking the trigger. Okay. And when it comes to shooting, your first shot is gonna be the most accurate, because you're just operating the rifle. So it's almost like the first shot is the way you need to shoot for the rest of your life. You don't know when the gun is gonna go off. Your job is just to pull the trigger. And what happens is that first shot, you're like, oh, I'm right on target. And then you get progressively worse. The reason you get progressively worse is you're starting to anticipate. So you're tensing up when you think the trigger's gonna break and the rifle's gonna recoil. You're like, oh, I gotta control this rifle. It's like, your job is to hold it firm and let the rifle recoil and get back on target. Let the rifle do its job, you do your job. So you want to be able to shoot in a variety of positions so that you know that you're able to shoot in those positions should you find yourself in one of them. The first time you do something shouldn't be the first time you've ever done it, like we said, right? So standing is fairly easy, right? We're going to be standing isosceles directly in front of the target. Great. If you can move for you, I guess your left, right? But for me, if I move my right foot back just a little bit, like literally 6 inches, that helps. Okay. The next position is kneeling. You may have to take a knee. So I would hold your rifle up to the target and then take a knee. You can sit on the back of your knee if you want to take an accurate shot, or you can be up in a position where you can stand up quickly if you need to. Then the next position is both knees. So throw your other knee behind you. Good. Now we're gonna pretend we're taking a shot from the seated position. So if you look here, what you're gonna do is you're gonna put your hand back here, and you can do it like that. And then we're gonna lay all the way back. Bring your knees up so they're not in the way of the muzzle, and see if you can get a sight picture. You don't really have to secure the rifle, you're gonna use your hands. It's not gonna be an accurate way to shoot, but see if you can get your red dot or your reticle on one of those steel targets in the back there.
Yep.
So we're actually going to be shooting from this position too when we start shooting. Then we're going to roll over onto your right or left side. So you want to have a variety of positions available to you that you've done before and fired rounds that you can get into these. You'll see tons of videos of guys doing these different positions. To me, there isn't really a right or wrong way. There's some ways that are better than others. As long as nothing is in front of the muzzle and you want to be as stable as you possibly can, you can do it any possible way. As long as you can get a sight picture, that's important. Now, when it comes to getting up, it's important. You want to be as efficient as possible. And again, you can do it a variety of different ways. If you're in this position, you're shooting from seated, let's practice getting up. Now, we're trying to keep our rifle on target. So you can go like this, put one hand behind you, bring up one of your hands, and then stand straight up. There you go. Out there in training, you're going to hear really two terms. You're going to hear speed reload and tactical reload. Speed reload is your gun is empty, so that's a problem. And tactical reload means I have some time, I'm just going to top up my gun, not make myself, you know, not standing there with an unloaded gun, but I have some time, I'm going to top it up. And I'm going to change magazines. I'm going to remove a magazine that's not empty. All right, so we have an empty magazine in our pocket or on our gear somewhere. We have an empty magazine in the gun itself. So first thing is a speed reload. This is what's going to happen if we don't, you know, if we don't have any more ammunition, we're standing there with a unloaded gun. So we're shooting, we're pulling the trigger, something goes wrong, we're like, what's happening here? We're going to turn the gun and look in the chamber. And we're going to see whether there's a double feed in there, whether there's a round stuck in the chamber like an empty casing or a live round, or it's just empty. Chances are it's just empty. So we're going to look, be like, okay, I need to reload. Then you're going to bring the gun in and you're going to strip this mag out. Now this is important, and there's a couple of different ways of doing this. Some people you're going to see are going to spin their rifle like this while they hit the magazine eject, and the empty magazine is going to go flying. And at the same time, they're already coming up with a new magazine. That works great, and it looks awesome. And it is super efficient. The problem is if there's some dirt or something's in the magazine well, and that magazine doesn't come out, now you're standing there with an unloaded gun, this and the magazine stuck in there, and you have a full mag in this hand. And so that was a tip I picked up from a US Navy SEAL, first combat rifle course I ever took way back in the day. See what's going on in there? Yes, I'm only just empty. I'm gonna bring this around, strip that mag, get rid of it. This is worthless. And you're bringing that new magazine up in and give it a whack to make sure it's seated. Now, some people also say instead of giving it a whack, just pull it downwards to make sure it's seated. Either way is fine. And then get back up on target once your action's closed. So for me to close the action, I have a little paddle, or I can run the charging handle. For you, it's right in the back. So magazine in, make sure it's seated, get the action closed, come right back up on target so that you're ready to shoot if you need to do that. The other kind of reload, nothing bad is happening right now. I just want to top my gun up, and that is your tactical reload. So how we're going to do that is, let's say we had a 30 round magazine and we shot 15, 18 rounds. You don't know kind of where you're at. You're like, okay, you know what? I want to top this up now because I have the time. So I'm going to bring my gun back up like this. I'm going to get the new mag and I'm going to make an L right at the bottom here. So I'm going to release this mag and push this one back in. And now I'm going to make sure that this isn't the next magazine I pull because it's partly empty. If I have a dump pouch, I'll put it in my dump pouch. If I have some other way to stow it, a pocket, I'll put it in there. Okay. You might need it later. Yeah. Okay, so now, if you want to practice exactly both of these skills, just keep doing this L thing and keep turning this mag. Right? This is how you can train yourself to make sure that you're able to do it at all times. Right? You can train yourself at home. You don't even have to have a loaded gun to do that. And when it comes to your regular speed reloads, you can train yourself, again, with no ammunition, so it's free. You can do it at home. Just make sure your firearm is completely unloaded and just put a magazine, come up, safety off, pull the trigger. Get your sight picture. Get your sight picture and pull the trigger. Then you go, oh, I have to reload my gun. Take this magazine out, throw it on the ground, pull another one, pop it in, give it a whack, close the action, get back up on target, safety off, pull the trigger. All right, now you got your hoodie off. That's good. You're cool in so many. BC, so you're cool in so many ways. Something that we need to cover is malfunctions. So we're not going to get into detail here. Again, The whole point of this series isn't to cover every single thing, every possible thing. You can go elsewhere for that kind of stuff. So malfunctions, learn how to clear them for the rifle you're running. Clearing a malfunction from the rifle that you're running is going to be different than an AR-15 or the rifle that I'm running. The other thing that we're not going to cover today is transition to secondary. So you'll see a lot of training where you'll have a pistol and you'll have a rifle. Your rifle goes dry or there's some kind of catastrophic malfunction. You'll bring the rifle down and you'll reach for your pistol, draw your pistol and shoot. We're not going to get into that today because again, we're trying to get the basics down and we only have so much time. Okay, so why don't we do one from standing, one kneeling, one sitting, one laying back, and one standing.
Okay.
Take your time with each one. Okay, safety on because you're going to start doing weird stuff. All right. Hand back, throw that leg out. Okay, safety on just in case. Okay, lay back, knees up. No, both lay straight back, both knees right up. Now let's see if you can take a shot like that. All right, now safety on. Sit up and see if you can stand up. Stand up while maintaining a sight picture.
Okay. Oh, shoot. Let me try that again.
Okay, when you put your hand back, put your leg behind you, if you can. There you go. Okay, take a shot. All right. So try to just hold the rifle steady and let it do its job. Okay, tactical reload. So when you do that, you're trying to keep a sight picture in case you head to fire, right?
Right.
Okay. So you're in low ready. You can turn your safety off. I'm going to give you a threat command. But then once you shoot around, pause, look around a little bit in front of you, flick to safe, and you're taking 2 big deep breaths when you do that, okay? So we're trying to bring stuff in. Okay, threat. Okay. Threat. Okay, did you take a deep breath?
Forgot about
Yeah, force yourself to take a really deep breath because if your heart is racing for some reason, you want to try to take every opportunity that you can to bring it down.
Okay.
Let's try another one. Toss that. Okay, we're going to do exactly the same thing. You're going to put it all together 100% of the time this time. Okay, in low ready is just looking over the sight. There you go. Threat. Deep breath. Great. All right, threat. How many fingers was I holding up?
2.
Perfect. Threat. Threat. You gotta hit the target. Keep shooting if you miss it. Gotta hit it. There we go. Took a look around for sure. Nothing was going on behind you. Deep breath. Okay, threat. Big breath. All right. Okay. Okay, you're gonna do that drill one more time. One standing, one kneeling, one sitting, one laid back, stand right up, and one at the very end standing.
Okay, so no breathing, none of that stuff.
Well, you want to be breathing while you're doing it, but
we're not doing that.
And then at the end, because this is whatever evolution that you decided to commit to. It's like I got to do this, this, and this, and this. Yeah. And it's like, okay, there's no more shooting.
Again.
Threat. Super careful. Okay, going safe because you're gonna be, okay, and let's stand up and finish. Yeah. All right, now, big breath. All right, good.
All right, guys, so this is the end of this video. Make sure you come back for video 5, where we finally start throwing some rounds downrange. Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here, back with video number 5 in our series with Rod Gil-Taka from the Canadian Coalition for Firearms Rights. Today, we're talking about movement and basic target engagement.
So we're gonna do some moving and shooting. We're gonna shoot with a little bit of cardio too. Put you through the paces a little bit.
I've chunked up a bit since the last time you seen me, but
excellent.
I'll do what I can.
Use of cover and concealment. We're gonna talk about shooting around barricades, that kind of stuff too. And we're gonna incorporate a little more positional shooting and then start bringing in a little bit of stress, more things to worry about, and we'll see how you do.
All right, let's do it.
All right, so we're going to talk about cover and concealment. It's a huge topic. We're gonna leave tons of stuff out. Yep. We're just gonna cover the basics. So cover is something that stops bullets, and concealment is something that just conceals your presence there. Yep. Concealment, bullets are gonna travel through. Rule of thumb, you probably, unless there's some value of you just staying concealed even though you're not protected, then that's fine. Other than that, you probably want to find cover. Yeah. But today, we're not going to deal with really concealment, we're just going to deal with cover. So everything that you're hiding behind that we're going to mess around with, that's just imagine it's a concrete wall. As a general rule, you want to stay back from cover if you have any choice at all. So you don't want to crowd cover, you don't want to be right on it unless you're using it to support your firearm. And you're going to make sure that the least amount of your body is exposed as necessary. So that's going to cause you to lean, meaning that you're going to be leaning around cover or concealment with the weight of the rifle, your upper body, your head, everything cantilevering off your torso. Right. And that takes some practice. And again, it's something that you can practice at home without expending any ammunition. Okay, so I'm going to stand behind you. You got your feet shoulder width apart. Bring your gun up. You got to cant your entire torso to the left. Lean way over, you got it? Okay. Now your elbow, your left elbow is hanging out there. So one of the reasons why I'm always kind of got my elbow sucked in, because the training that I have is all in structures, in houses, commercial buildings, stuff like that, right? That I was lucky enough to get. So you're always worried about your elbow and you're passing through, like door frames are a big deal in that kind of stuff. So you're always trying to, I got to get through a door frame, especially wearing gear. So that's why I've always got my elbows tucked in. I'm always compact. I'm not letting anything hang out there. So tuck in and lean right over. Seems like you're leaning a lot on your leg and not your waist. So that's something we can practice. Let's try it on your right side. So now you're gonna keep the rifle, in your strong hand side. So you're using a lot of muscles, right, to do that. Yeah. There's a lot going on there. So one thing that you can do is lean forward. So I tend to lean way forward and go forward and to the right. Now I'm not wearing a rifle, so it's easier, right? But I can lean my whole body right over like that. Right? So see what I'm saying? Like this is staying straight almost. I can lean right over like that. I think maybe you're not as flexible as I am that way or something, but it's gonna take a little bit of practice and build up those muscles. That's not something that you practice every day, right? But you got to keep those elbows in. You want to keep your legs behind cover. There you go. Yeah, I think you're starting to bend now more than you were even just a little bit ago. You just got to get used to that. Yeah. Now let's take a knee. Now I've heard two schools of thought on this too. One elite operator told me if I'm leaning right, my right knee is down. And then I can get my stance as wide as I can. And now I've got a counterbalance. And now I can look how far I can lean in this position. Now, if I'm gonna change, I can lean right down like that. Yeah, you're leaning away from the knee that's up. So that's for you to go on your strong side, which is your left, right? Yeah. Because that other leg is like a counterbalance. Yeah. Okay. Now flip your legs the other way and lean to the right. And you're gonna have to lean further. So you decide what works best for you.
Yeah.
Like that's, I don't think there's a right way and a wrong way, or there's a right way and a wrong way for individuals.
This is one I'll have to work on.
Yeah, okay. All right, so shoot at the targets, it doesn't matter if you miss.
Okay.
Okay, we're just gonna keep walking at the same cadence. Okay, so I'm gonna say move, you're gonna start walking, and I'll call threat, and you shoot shots. When your gun goes dry, bring it up, change, but don't stop walking.
Okay.
And then when we get a certain point, we get within 50 meters, I'm gonna say, okay, hold, you're gonna stop, I'm gonna say pull back. And then you're slowly gonna walk backwards, and I'll yell threats again.
Okay.
Okay, all right. So bring your rifle up. Okay, let's move. Threat. Keep walking. Threat. 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 Oh, you're out. Keep walking. Keep walking. Threat. Okay, hold. Okay, we're gonna fall back, nice and slow. Move back, fall back. Just slow, slow.
Do I have my eye on the reticle? Or?
Yeah, threat. 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 Okay, you're out. Reload. Not bad, not bad. You're still walking. Threat. 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 All right. That's pretty hard, just walking forward and walking backwards.
Yeah.
While doing those things and continuing to just have your feet walking.
Yeah.
Right? So that's a good indication of how difficult it is. Your intellectual bandwidth is fully consumed right now.
Yeah.
So you got so much going on, you can't even walk reliably. So that's the demonstration. So as these skills become ingrained, and they no longer take up that whole bandwidth, now you got all this extra space for things like, tactics and things like that. Yeah, all kinds of other stuff. Yeah. All right, we're gonna move on. So when it comes to turning and shooting, if I'm facing this way and I want to place rounds this way, I'm gonna throw my outside leg around. And the reason for that is I used to do it wrong. Well, wrong-ish, right? Some people thought it was wrong. I used to bring my leg back like this and bring the gun straight up. And that's the reason why I was told it's wrong is because you're stepping into nothing. There could be a big rock there, I catch my heel, I'm going down for sure. Whereas if I go this way, I know where my foot's going. I have peripheral vision down there, right? So when you do these things, when your gun never comes up until it's in the plane of downrange. Okay, so part of muzzle direction is you're always keeping your muzzle pointed downrange, down, or up. Up is generally considered safe. Okay, so this is okay. This is okay, and downrange is where you want to be too. Okay, so I'm gonna have you stand with your left shoulder, and I'm gonna say threat, and you're gonna bring your right foot around, you're gonna bring the rifle up, get a sight picture, place around, and go on safe again. So you got your rifle, threat, nice and slow. Okay, so don't bring the rifle up until you've turned. Okay, so you're gonna bring that leg around almost, it's almost 2 steps, and bring the rifle up. Okay, it's looking a little better. Now face me and do the same thing. So leg first, rifle second. Good. Okay.
Step safe.
It's oddly enough, it takes practice. Isn't that ridiculous?
Well,
and so you literally need to practice that at home. You don't have to fire rounds, doesn't cost you a penny to practice. Now we're gonna face away from the target. Now when you turn, you gotta do the same thing. You're gonna decide which way you're gonna turn. I'm gonna let you decide, but you're gonna come all the way around and bring the rifle up. And you're gonna look while you're doing it, right? You're gonna look over your shoulder to find out what's going on. You're gonna turn, you're gonna look, you're gonna come around, and then your rifle's gonna come up right there. So let's do it really slow. There's 3 parts. Turn your head. Okay, you're gonna go that way. So you threw your outside leg around. So try it again. Right, if you're gonna go this way, you're gonna, because remember you're turning in. You're not doing this. Right, but make sure that you're separating those three actions. Look, turn, gun up.
So look,
turn, and gun up.
gun up.
Yeah. Now when you're facing the other way, if you're ready with your firearm, it's like this. And the way I have it is I always have the gun, like if you look at where the buttstock is right now, and you just bring it down and it's almost like it's glued there.
Right.
So plant that rifle just like that. Yeah, straight down though. You got to keep that thing tucked in, because you could have a teammate, right? I could be standing right here. I'm like, oh, blah, 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 blah. You're like, holy shit. You'd be turning, right? So let's do it while I'm standing here. Go ahead. Nice and slow.
Oh, you want me to turn into you?
Yeah, you're going to turn right here and don't point the gun at me.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah. There we go. Yeah, just like that. Perfect.
Okay.
There you go. All right. So again, that's something you should practice at home.
Yeah.
Costs you nothing to practice. Right. Costs you like literally 10 minutes a day for 2 weeks, and you're moving around like you've been doing it your whole life. Okay, so they call this a box drill. So you're gonna walk from one cone to the next. I'm gonna yell threat, you're gonna stop. So I'm here like this. You're like, threat. Boom. Safety on. Threat. Boom. Take a look around. Big breath, safety on. Back again, and just keep going. Because you're gonna end up in facing a bunch of different directions, and you're moving, and you're engaging targets, and you're turning the right way,
that's a lot.
And you're controlling the muzzle direction.
Okay.
Right? All right, so we're gonna do it without any ammo. So let's watch. Threat. Threat. Okay, so you're still kind of stuttering a little bit with your feet, right? So if it's threat, just come right up. And so hopefully you're in a good position, but what's more likely to happen is you'll be in between strides. So well, how do you end up, what's your body position? You end up isosceles anyway, right?
Yeah.
You end up like this regardless. All right, let's keep moving. Threat. Try to keep both hands on your gun when you're looking. Threat. Threat. So there was a good example. You ended up in a bit of a pirouette because I'm trying to get you when you're like stepping here to confuse you. But if you made that step, you could easily just turn. Okay. Right? Instead of making 3 little steps, 1 good sweep. Yeah. Look, good sweep, pull the trigger. Okay. Threat. Breath, look around. Did you look behind you? Yeah. Yeah. Get right around there. Threat. Okay, let's move on. We're gonna do that with ammunition. We're gonna shoot now. Okay. No misses. Okay, so all that means is take all the time that you need when you're aligning the sights, getting the sight picture, take all the time that you need just so that you don't miss. Okay. Threat. Good. Okay. Threat. Okay, let's keep moving. Threat. I think the turn that you just did was the best you've done so far. All right. So, right but on. You got to make sure, keep your hands on the gun, which you let go. We can always improve. Yeah. And the more you practice that at home, just your turning, bringing the gun up. and getting a sight picture is important.
Awesome.
Okay, let's, we're gonna do something a little bit different then. We're gonna do a little variation on this. All right, let's jog clockwise.
Jog.
Threat! Let's move. Threat! 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 Look around, take a big breath. Okay, let's move. All right, so we're gonna hold. We're gonna change it up again. So you're gonna be running this way. Threat. Okay. Boom. Safety on. Threat. Boom. Safety on. Threat. Boom. Safety on. Okay, so you're gonna have to do a full turn when you're heading back this way. Okay, go ahead and move. Threat. Take a look around, deep breath, safe. All right, keep moving again. Threat. 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 He's empty. Threat! Was there a little bit of a tense up there? All right, that's cool. So come on in. So we're bringing together, moving, even running, and shooting, and your muzzle direction, and trying to be accurate, right? We weren't allowing any misses. You had to continue to shoot until you hit the target. Yeah. You got the scanning, you got the breathing. And it's a lot of work to put all that. You got the wasps. They're part of it. I had to pay for those. Anyway.
Well, they, that's what this sort of thing would entail.
Yeah. So you see, we're bringing a bunch of things, and now that you're simply just running around two cones, trying to engage a target. See how difficult that is?
I started to notice even the stuff that we did right from the start was already starting to become more rote, like it was becoming more hardwired. Obviously, I've only been doing this for, an hour, but you could already see the amount of space, the things that I was focusing on. Maybe I only checked one of 3 or 4 of the boxes, but I was starting to check a box or 2, which is what I'm saying.
Well, your muzzle direction was good.
Yeah.
Your turning got better.
Yeah.
And I don't think I had to tell you to scan and breathe once.
Yeah.
So now those things are taking care of themselves. Yeah. And now things like your turning and all the rest of that stuff that you're focusing on in this particular drill was you could focus on what you need to focus on, right?
Yeah.
And that's it coming together.
Good stuff, guys. You got to try this. It's a lot of fun.
And it's not as easy as people think, right?
No.
Yeah.
And you make your ammo go a little further than just ping, ping, ping,
Absolutely. We're getting something out of it, right?
Exactly. I think being more deliberate with the movements, particularly the one drill that I found I was starting to improve at towards the end of the day, and I think it's a lot that just not hesitating. It has a lot to do with not hesitating, is the turning around or getting on target from when you're not in the starting position and you have to turn around or you have to step to the side. I found myself becoming more confident, in that. And in doing that, I was able to execute the movement a bit quicker. Like there wasn't that sluggishness to it, which I think is just one of those things that will come with time. But I would prefer to train slower and take my time, like you were saying with the target, you know, make sure that you're on target. Don't try to be sloppy with it. Otherwise, you know, in my experience, the best way to learn things is to do it slow and to do it properly. And even if it takes you a long time to get it right.
I think it's far more valuable to be able to bring, you know, have some stimulus prompt you to engage a target, to be able to bring your firearm up, to get a sight picture and to place an accurate shot quickly, than to bring your firearm up and, you know, spray a bunch of bullets randomly at a target, right? If you can place basically the accurate shot, the first accurate shot wins. So you're far better off training a little bit longer, paying attention to detail, getting that first sight picture accurate shot than you are just to try to shoot fast. So get accurate first, and then you can just increase the speed. And again, a pro tip is, if you're starting to increase speed doing drills and you're starting to miss often, you know that you've hit your point of failure. So back off the speed just a little bit, just until you're accurate again in whatever drill you're doing, and then you can try to increase the speed again. Yeah. So having speed versus accuracy is the big trade-off, right? They're inversely proportional to each other. So you're trying to get them together and then bring them both up at the same time.
Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here. Welcome back once again. This is video 6 in our series on comprehensive firearms training. Today, from what I'm told, we're going to be learning about threat identification. What can you tell me about that?
All right, so this is very simple but incredibly important. This is bringing together all the skills that we've learned so far, incorporating them in a series of drills, but most importantly, learning to shoot certain targets and not shoot others. That's the simplest way to talk about it. Your world can change if you send a projectile somewhere it shouldn't go.
It's very important that we all recognize as responsible firearms owners that we are the ones who are accountable for every round that leaves the gun. And this drill that we're going to learn today is hopefully going to help us hone those abilities to discern what is a threat and what isn't.
So threat identification is making sure that the rounds that we fire go where they're supposed to go and when they're supposed to go, 100% without exception. And that we're going to base that around different commands. We're going to base that around maybe even math calculations. There's all kinds of things that we can throw into the mix to train ourselves. All that to say, let's start the drills and we'll see how it goes. So threat identification means that you want to identify what it is you want to shoot, and you're not going to shoot anything that you're not supposed to. Going back to the intellectual bandwidth principle, we've got a lot of different things going on these targets. So the threat commands are going to be, here's the criteria and threat. No matter what, you aren't going to shoot what we're calling as that, you know, as that threat. This is your target. So if I say 331 threat, you're going to shoot into this. You're not shooting 331, right? So that's going to give you a little bit of discernment. It's like, I'm not shooting that. There's my target. Yeah, I might say even numbers. So you're going to look for every target that has an even number. If this one does, every page, right? So there's no even number here, so you wouldn't shoot it. If there was, you're going to shoot your target.
I see.
Now what we've done is we've mixed up like symbols. We have a couple letters. We got Charlie, Alpha. We might even get really complicated, like saying, you know, numbers that add up to 12. So you'd have to look, because this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to fill that intellect. We're trying to ram a bunch of information through that pipe as quickly as possible. And that brings together, you know, like, okay, well, I'm controlling my muzzle direction. I'm figuring out what target I'm supposed to shoot. I'm shooting accurately at where I'm supposed to shoot on each target. Putting my safety on, I'm scanning, I'm breathing. We might even start moving too, right? So now we're just flooding information into your mind that you have to sift through to make a shot. This is what's going to take you from kind of a beginner shooter to the next level. Okay, so what we're going to focus on is shooting the right target in the right place, right? Just where those crosshairs are.
Yeah.
And let's just do one round only. Don't worry about incorporating anything else for now. Okay. You ready? 4, threat. 21, threat. Okay, so when you shoot, be in low ready. So you're gonna have to keep that rifle up.
Okay, yeah.
And then when you come off it, just bring it down so you're looking over the sight so that you're in a position to shoot. And then when you're done, don't bring the rifle all the way down, just look over the sight again because you're getting threat commands.
All right.
Okay. November, threat. Red circle, threat. Was there any other red circles?
There.
Shoot that one too.
Okay. Oh.
Okay, so I saw a big anticipation there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Just getting it in, yeah.
Yeah, just bring the rifle up, let the rifle do its job.
Okay.
Okay, blue circle. Okay, keep that rifle up. Bravo, threat. .62, threat. Charlie, threat. Charlie. Okay, so I just saw that hole. It's way off, right?
Yeah.
So you try to get it right in that circle. If you need to take a little bit more time, accuracy is more important at this state. Okay. Plus, we're not loading you up, so you got to be accurate now because it's going to get worse later.
Okay.
All right, we're gonna move on and start adding complexity. Okay. So now the command is threat. It's not anything else. If you don't hear threat, don't shoot.
Okay.
So I might say, Juliet, don't shoot the J.
Okay.
Just wait for a threat command.
Okay.
So you're in the low ready, looking just over the optic. 62, shoot, shoot, shoot. Threat. Okay, good. Right? You see what we're trying to do? Yeah. It's like you have to listen because that could be a teammate talking to you over the comms, going like, don't shoot that guy. All right, red circle, threat. Hashtag threat. Star, fire. Star, threat. Any target with an even number, threat. All right, good one, right? That's a tough one, right? Because you're looking, is that even or odd, especially when they're higher numbers like 98. You see a 9, right? Like, that's not, oh yes it is. So we're really pushing you to process a lot of information, use a firearm shooting real bullets, right? Listening to the commands, the voice that's, people are yelling at you. Now we're really getting things in here. And now I'll take 2 seconds to say, you can take it to the next level by doing that using a box drill, like we did way back in the other video. Where we got 4 cones, you're walking, you're turning, you're shooting the correct target or not shooting it, you're scanning, you're breathing, you're determining it's no longer required to shoot, you're on safe, and then you start walking again. So you can see how we're just cramming all this stuff.
Combining all the different things that we've learned throughout the whole thing.
Yeah, because, and here's the challenge, guys that do this for a living, that's what we're trying to see, like, how do we measure up? Like, that's why I tactical shoot. It's not because I want to be something I'm not, it's because I want to be like, oh, would I be able to do that? How do I measure up to that? And it's a challenge because it's a challenge even for people that do it for a living, right? That's why we're doing it. So now we're gonna put scanning and breathing in there. All right, here we go. Red circle, threat. Green circle, threat. That's a square. There's a circle there though.
Oh, I'm thinking green. Yeah, I can't tell green and yellow apart.
Okay.
Right. I am colorblind.
That's okay. That's all right. But see how that, you know what I'm saying? Like if you weren't sure, you should have just wait. I'm like, is that a circle or is that green?
Yeah, I was looking at the bottom left.
Yeah. All right. Red triangle, threat. Blue triangle, threat. All right. Now we're gonna move and shoot and do all this stuff. All right, so what we're gonna do now, that we've made our way through all that, is we're gonna throw you in the meat grinder. We're gonna put a whole bunch of things together, and we're gonna introduce yet another new concept, which is, I guess the easiest way to explain it is, as you know, if you're under stress or your heart is beating very quickly, you can lose fine motor skills. So we're going to practice going from gross motor skills, which is you shooting, moving around, stepping over obstacles, going to different points, accepting commands, but then another command will be, call me right now, or text me right now this message. So you're going to have to find a place, take a knee, have your gun on safe, pull your phone out, get into it, and text me what I'm talking about. I may yell threat, blue circle.
Okay.
So then you're gonna have to be like, put the phone down, bring your gun up, engage the blue circles, make sure it's safe, take a deep breath, scan around, gun on safe, get back on it. So you're changing from gross motor skills to fine motor skills, back and forth. Okay, so that's a really important concept.
I'm gonna have to take this off then, because I can't text with this on, so.
Yeah, well, you can keep your gloves off if you want for this
Okay.
one. And then we're also have added obstacles. And obstacles are just gonna be more physical stress on you. It's like, okay, I gotta step over this thing, I gotta mind my muzzle direction. We've got all this stuff to put together.
Let's jump into this meat grinder and see what happens.
Okay, let's move. Green circle, threat. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Is there any other threats? Did you scan around? Did you breathe? Okay, let's move. We're throwing a lot at you in one day. Okay, let's get over this obstacle. Red triangle, threat. All right, let's fall back. Blue square, threat, blue square, threat, threat, threat. All right, let's keep falling back. All right, now you can jog. Go to position Charlie. 21, threat, 21. Let's go to position Alpha. Let's move it. Threat, 8, threat, 8. Okay, there's an 8 over there. That's a B, but I can forgive you for that one because it's hard.
All right.
Yeah. All right, let's go to Charlie. Red triangle, threat. Number 4, threat.
Gotta get that triangle.
Okay, on safe. Now we're gonna add positions. Let's move forward. Threat, 8. Deep breath, safety on. Threat, red circle. All right, text me. Text me your name. Threat, hashtag, threat, hashtag. Okay, take a look around too when you're doing that. Just a quick look. You're not missing anything.
Checking my Instagram.
All right, got it. All right, let's fall back. Watch your muzzle direction. Let's step over this. Blue triangle, threat. Okay, seated position. Okay, go unsafe and then hit the seated position.
Oh, seated.
Yeah.
You got me.
Star, threat. All right, lay back and threat, alpha. Knees right up, keep your feet out of there. All right, threat, red triangle. Okay, let's keep a sight picture and get up. All right, threat, Yankee. All right, threat, star. All right, okay, that's challenging, isn't it?
Yeah, it's fun though.
So what we're gonna do now is an immediate action drill. So we've put together a lot of stuff, right, in these videos, a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So what we're trying to do in this drill is we're gonna do a very basic threat identification, but we're going to train on taking immediate action. When we know that threat, we're gonna put multiple rounds on target, and then we're gonna incorporate moving. So you're gonna hear people, in the business talk about getting off the X, getting off the train tracks, getting off the place where we're being, sighted in by whatever, in a military or law enforcement kind of context. But it's always harder to shoot a moving target. So it's always good to, if you can, engage and move at the same time. And also make that decision, like immediate action is needed. I know what my target is. I'm putting multiple rounds on target and I'm moving right now. When that group of shots that you took is over, then we're gonna try to make it as realistic as possible. Then you're like, okay, I just put rounds on a target. I don't wanna get fixated on it. Remember going back to tunnel vision or being hyper-focused on something, especially something, that a law enforcement professional or military would have to deal with. Mm-hmm. You wanna break that focus and do your scan and breathe. So the only things we're gonna do here are scan and breathe, engage targets immediately. As soon as that threat command is issued, yeah, you're shooting 2 or 3 rounds, whatever you decide is necessary, and you're moving at the same time. So we're gonna demonstrate it for you.
All right, let's do it.
So immediate action. Like we talked about a minute ago, we're gonna say target 1, 2, or 3. We're gonna keep that simple. So basically, here are 3 targets. We have a problem. We know something's gonna go down. So you're ready, you got your rifle. You might even keep your rifle up, both eyes open, of course. Have you been closing an eye today at all?
I probably have been, yeah.
Yeah, so keep your, I forgot to check that. Yeah. But keep your both eyes open and you're scanning these 3. You're like, okay, one of these 3 is gonna be a problem. And we're really close, right? Yeah. So you don't have to wait. Yeah. What we want is immediate fire, like right now. Because at this distance, you don't need to close an eye, you don't need to relax, you don't need to do any of that stuff. You got a rifle. You're not really gonna miss. Okay. As long as you keep your head on. Yeah. So you're gonna do a couple of things. You're gonna be sitting here looking through the optic. You're actually putting the optic on these targets where you're supposed to, right on those crosshairs. Okay. So it's kind of convenient that I put them at different heights. So it's not linear, right? You're looking.
Oh, so you still want me to hit the crosshairs?
Yeah, only the crosshairs.
Okay.
Right, as a place to shoot.
That's harder than steel, but okay, yeah.
So you're scanning, I'll be like, threat, it's 2. So you're gonna immediately go to shoot number 2, get some lead down range, and at the same time you're gonna push off, and I'll leave it up to you which way you're gonna push, but you're gonna push off. At least take 2 steps while you're shooting. So you're training yourself to take immediate action, put fire on the target, and move at the same time. You don't have to worry if you miss the target stand or whatever, you're just trying to get close.
So you want me to move while I'm shooting?
Yeah. So if I go, there's a threat, number two, boom, 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 and you're pushing off. Try to you can just do 1, because this is even okay too. If you just go like this, Even that's better than not moving.
Okay.
Now, this is not something you're gonna do if you're on the line with a bunch of people, but if you're just training with a partner and your partner's back here, this is a really good thing to do. Okay, so now you believe there's a problem. You've gotten to the point where you're pointing. Now, sorry Nate, if you're using isosceles, this is a situation where it's beneficial to you, right? Because I can push off either leg. I don't have to worry about this and trying to go that direction. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so your heels are on the ground, right? You're well planted. Okay, there's some kind of problem here, and the threat is number three. All right. Now, it's far more beneficial to take a good stride. You're gonna cover probably more ground than doing this. See what I'm saying? It's like a really good push, almost like a hockey player trying to get some speed skating, right? Okay. Really good push off. Okay, you got a problem. There's a threat. Number one. Okay, don't take your gun down. After this, you're gonna stop. You're gonna look around, you're gonna take a deep breath and like, holy crap, I can't believe that just happened. You know what I mean? Because that's what we're trying to simulate here. All right, let's get back to the middle. How many rounds do you think you have in your magazine?
1 left.
All right, why don't you do a tactical reload so that you have 6. Okay, perfect. So you're scanning, you're a little keyed up, something's up, and there's a threat, and it's number 3. It's number 3. All right, good. Let's get back in the middle. Something's up here, and there is a threat. It's number 2. Okay, so one of the other reasons why you don't want to be hopping, just step, because you're going to make your rifle go like this too, right? So you're just taking a really good positive step sideways, right? Like use your stride. Yeah. Okay, let's try again. Okay, there's a problem somewhere. It's number 1. Threat. Deep breath. Taking a good look around. You're almost running a scenario in your head so that when you have to think and do all these things, it's familiar to you. Let's get back to the middle. Let's try moving to the right side because you seem to prefer to the left side. There could be a wall here, right? Yeah. Or somebody, and there could be your buddy's like, holy crap, I can't believe we got into this situation, and you're not gonna bash into him. Yeah, thumbs up, you got a problem. There's a threat. It's number 1. All right, good. Took a deep breath, really know what's going on out there. Now, if you have to make a mag change, take a knee and make that mag change, get up and shoot another round. Okay, something's going on. Something's up with these 3 targets. Okay, I think there's a threat. It's number 1. Okay, it's number 3. Take a knee, change that mag, throw that thing away. That mag's no good. There we go. 3. Safety on. Standing. You got a problem. Get that gun up. I know you're tired, but nobody cares. Number one, threat. Oh shit, another one of these guys making a move. Number two, threat. All right.
There's a lot of variables to keep in mind, and if I'm trying to remember everything, then you just end up not being able to function at all. So it's almost like you have to respond slowly, smoothly. That's the best way to do it, but it's definitely very overwhelming. I can see, in a real life situation, the amount of things that a person would have to focus on. It would be, the training would most certainly come in handy. So, yeah.
Yeah, and it takes going through an exercise like this to really understand it.
Yeah.
If you don't go through it, you don't understand it.
No, you don't appreciate, everything that's involved with it. And especially having to go from gross to fine motor skills, that was a little difficult. And of course, I think you noticed right when I felt relaxed. I was about to finally text you. I got into I found you in the text, the SMS, and then right away you put me back into gross motor skills. So, you know, it's a lot to process, but I could see it getting easier over time. And I think it would be very interesting to follow somebody's development as they trained at this sort of routine over time, just to see the progress.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to spending a little bit more time doing this when we get back home to Saskatoon. Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here, back again with our friend Rod Giltack of the Canadian Coalition for Firearms Rights. This is probably among the most important videos in the series because we're going to be putting all the pieces together today, going into a bit more detail about certain things. So you're absolutely going to want to sit through this one and indeed go back and watch the videos over again and again until you've gotten everything you need to out of them. I'd strongly encourage you to do that. Bookmark this stuff, download it, share it. Hopefully this can become a part of your regular training regimen, and feel free if you have any questions to post them in the comments section below. So Rod, how do you think I did yesterday?
Well, I think you improved dramatically from the morning to the late afternoon, but this is not something that you can learn in a day. This is an ongoing process, and we've got a whole list of little mini analyses of what we did throughout the course and some tips that are really important, some details that you don't want to leave out if you're going to be committed and you want to get from A to B. So we learned a lot about a lot of things in this series. What we're going to talk about are some tips to make sure that the time that you spend and the expensive ammunition that you're expending is not for nothing. You're getting maximum training value out of every round that you fire. So pay attention to the basics. And we talked at length about the reason why we're doing these drills. And you know, if you find them difficult, like all that positional shooting that we did, taking a knee, taking a seated position, being able to shoot on your back, right? Coming up, keeping your rifle on target, all of those details are important. And even though that was one of the most physical parts of the training, and it's a part that most people would want to avoid because it's, you know, it's demanding, right? It takes energy. Yeah. You got to make sure that you force yourself to do those things, because these things are some of the most important components of your abilities in different situations, whether it's competition or even hunting, right? And God forbid anything worse. So really important.
Well, and I think it's a motivation for people who perhaps, like myself, who've added a few pounds since the last time we met, the importance of physical fitness. It's not just, you know, you're not going to always be in the ideal situation where you're just in a fully supported position and you could, you know, take down your deer from 100 yards away in the comfort of your tree stand. Like, there's going to be situations where you have to move, where you have to maybe shoot from a awkward angle, or, you know, and there are some of those positions, in spite of the fact that I'm in relatively good physical condition, that I still struggled with, particularly the getting up and sitting down. And a lot of those things, it's not so much that I can't do them, it's just that they're not hardwired motor patterns yet. And keeping that gun focused straight while getting up and doing all those things, you're almost like a gimbal. You got to keep the gun on one level and then you're moving your body at the same time. So, you know, just little things like that. Physical fitness definitely goes a long way. So hopefully this motivates more people to take that seriously. We had a bit of a discussion yesterday on the way home about how, while firearms are the great equalizer in some ways, there still is great advantages to being physically fit. You know, you might be in a situation where you're carrying a large amount of gear, and just the stress of the situation itself is going to be so cardiovascularly inducing that, you know, a lot of people are going to gas out much quicker than they realize.
Next detail is in a lot of the drills that we did, we talked about, okay, fire one round. And the reason why we're saying one round a lot of times is because in Canada we have this limitation for center fire semi-automatic rifles and shotguns that you have 5-round mags. So if we were in any kind of civilized country, we would have standard capacity magazines, because just to throw a dig in, magazine capacity restrictions have no demonstrable relationship to public safety, but nonetheless, that's what we have here. What I would recommend is you always change up the number of rounds. You're going to hear, you know, if you're the one that's shooting, you're going to hear a command, a shoot command from somebody, but you should decide how many rounds you shoot. If you are in a country where you have standard capacity magazines, or some more than 5, then if you want to shoot something with 2 rounds or 5 rounds, go ahead and do that. Because if you consistently train firing only 1 round, that's what you're going to do in a stressful situation. You're going to be, I fire 1 round and I'm looking for instructions. So you got to incorporate a little bit of your own motivate, your own
decision making.
yeah, your own decision making into these situations. Really important. You got to break it up a little bit.
Yeah, I think the more you can randomize the process, the better.
So another thing that we talked about is find someone to train with. That is just as much of an invaluable tool as having steel targets and having nice gear and all the rest of that stuff. If you can train with someone else, even if you're sharing the gear, that external stimulus is so important. We talked about that on the range. You got to have this external stimulus, because in the real world, you're not deciding what the situation looks like. It never unfolds the way you think it's going to, right? So
is there it got me thinking, is there any tools like apps that can act as that person for somebody who doesn't have that, like a randomized beep or something like that?
You can get a shot timer. I don't use shot timers myself, but I'm sure you can get them with all kinds of different features. But a shot timer does work, and you can have the opportunity to measure your reaction time. So that's probably a great tool as well. Ideally, the best thing is that you're training with someone and it's traditionally the same person, so that when you need a break, you just swap places. Now you got your friend yelling shoot commands, or go to certain areas, or throw somebody in a different position, and you mix up all those commands and you don't know when they're coming. It's just very, very valuable. And
there is that human interaction component, which would be a factor in those situations. So training yourself to the sound of a bell might not be as, unless I'm sure you could probably get apps nowadays that was a person's voice or something like that. But yeah, it's cool. I'm gonna have to look into that.
Another important point, along with all the other important points we're talking about, is after you've trained a few times, like if you take this to heart and you're like, you know what, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna dedicate a month, and I'm gonna train twice a week for a month. That's 8 sessions, train for 4 hours. I got a partner, I've made my investment in ammunition, all the rest of that stuff. Once you train maybe 2 sessions, go back and watch some of these videos again and figure out what you missed, because there's so much information that we've gone through so quickly, just because we're trying to cram as much as we can in the time that we had. You will miss things. You'll miss critical details that are going to help you later, right? Because remember, this is a whole wide, a really broad spectrum of little individual skills, like the threat identification using numbers, threat identification using shapes or colors. We've got movement. We've got, shooting positions. We've got different commands, like listening to commands. You were using threat as a command to shoot, and then I would say fire, 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 shoot. And if you shot, that's you didn't listen to the right command. Like you're sorting through so much stuff. Go back and find all the tricks that we've given you in the videos to help you be just absolutely precise. Because what your goal is to be able to physically move in all these different positions, to engage all these different targets accurately and as quickly as possible, and to be discerning. You're never going to shoot a target unless that's the target that you need to engage, and you're going to engage quickly when you need to. Like those are the skills that you're trying to develop, especially if you're going to do something that requires so much responsibility as owning and using a firearm. I think finally, an important detail is to remember why you're doing this training, right? If we're going to be real about things, you're probably never going to be in a gunfight. I've shot, I think I mentioned 150,000 rounds of ammunition, somewhere around there in a like maybe a 12-year career in training. And I've never been in a gunfight. I probably will never be in one. And that's not the reason that I'm training. I'm training because it would help me in competition. It'll make me a more responsible firearm owner. It'll make my safety unbeatable. Like just the level of safety from someone that's gone through the training that you have on a regular basis isn't comparable in any way to someone that just owns a firearm and goes to the range to blow off a few rounds. They make safety mistakes. I won't say all the time, I don't want to overstate it, but often. So there's a lot of different reasons why you do that, and it's physically demanding. You can have so much fun. I don't know if what you did yesterday was fun, but you can have so much fun while you're building all of these skills out that we're talking about in hunting, anything. You can apply these to, and get a really great workout at the same time. Work a lot of muscles you wouldn't normally work in the gym.
Just like a martial art, you can train your entire life and never get in a fight. And you'll ask any sensei, well, why do you waste your time doing this? And it's because a lot of those skills are transferable to other areas of your life. It makes you a better, more responsible person in these other domains of your life that might be completely unrelated. Where it just teaches you discipline in so many different areas. It does require a certain amount of physical capability, so it compels you to focus on your physical fitness, mental health wise. You know, you have to be sharp. You have to get your emotions under control, and it's never a bad thing to have more control over your emotions. So, you know, if this sort of training can allow a person to do that, then let's hope you never have to utilize any of these skills in a combative situation. But it still will, and it is a lot of fun. And I mean, I'm not just saying that. It is like, you know, it's a challenge. It's a nice, fun, achievable challenge, and anybody at any level. The thing I like about this is that it doesn't matter where you're starting, there's always a drill you can do. So maybe you're not the most physically fit person, you can still train the breathing part. You can still train the, you know, getting the gun up on sight part. You can still train the reaction time part. So you don't have to be, you know, John Wick to be able to do all this stuff. You can jump in at any point and improve from there.
Yeah, and it's a good skill to have,
yeah,
I think.
Absolutely. All right, guys, I would strongly encourage you to bookmark this series. Please share the videos, especially for people you know who are just getting started in shooting. There's something in these videos for everybody, whether you're a beginner, intermediate, advanced. Yeah, I'm sure that you will get something out of these videos. So be sure to share them with every shooter you know, and let's get the word out on the Canadian Coalition for Firearms Rights. Thanks a lot for having us out here, Rod. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
The best way to support this channel is to support yourself by gearing up at CanadianPreparedness.com, where you'll find high-quality survival gear at the best prices, no junk, and no gimmicks. Use discount code PREPPINGGEAR for 10% off. Don't forget, the strong survive, but the prepared thrive. Stay safe.